Gilbert Antoine de Saint-Maxent was a merchant and military officer who played a major role in the development of French and Spanish Louisiana. Maxent was born in Longueuil, Meurthe-et-Moselle, in Lorraine, France. In 1747 he moved to New Orleans, the French colonial capital of Lower Louisiana. He enlisted in the French army and in 1749 married the wealthy Elizabeth La Roche. He used the dowry to open a business on Conti Street to supply fur traders. In 1753 he was promoted to colonel and commandant of the Louisiana Regiment by Governor Louis de Beloit-Curlire. He was to distinguish himself in battles defending Louisiana against incursions by the British and Chickasaws in the French and Indian War. Founding of St. Louis in 1755, Curlire gave Maxent exclusive rights to deal with Native Americans west of the Mississippi River. Maxent's most ambitious effort was the formation of Maxent, Laclede and Company, in which he gave 25% ownership to Pierre Laclede. In 1763 Laclede selected a site on a bluff above the west side of the Mississippi River, just south of the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, for a settlement that was to be called St. Louis. According to legend, work on clearing the site began on St. Valentine's Day of 1764. St. Louis was founded before news arrived that in the Treaty of Paris, which ended the French and Indian War, Spain would take over France's possessions on the west of the Mississippi River and that the British were to take over French lands on the east side of the river. After the news arrived, French colonists on the east side of the river moved to the west side. At St. Louis' Rebellion of 1768, Maxent, whose fortune was tied to France, was to have his loyalties severely tested in the transition from French to Spanish control. Maxent was one of the first Frenchmen to pledge his allegiance to the new Spanish governor, Antonio de Ulloa, and Ulloa was named godfather of one of Maxent's daughters. Maxent entered into contracts to supply Spanish frigates. When the Creole and German settlers around New Orleans resisted Spanish rule in the Rebellion of 1768, they imprisoned Maxent at his plantation from October 25 to 29, 1768, releasing him after Ulloa was forced out of the city to return to Spain. In January 1769, Maxent thwarted the plotter's efforts to enlist Native Americans in the planned resistance to any Spanish attempt to reclaim New Orleans. In May of 1769, the partnership with Laclede was dissolved, with Laclede buying the St. Louis facilities for 80,000 livres and the first payment due in June 1771. In August 1769, Alejandro O'Reilly restored Spanish authority in New Orleans, putting down the rebellion and executing 5 ringleaders while imprisoning 5 others. O'Reilly abolished the Superior Council which had governed Louisiana during the French period, replacing it with the Spanish Cabildo and replacing the French laws with the Spanish Code. O'Reilly gave Maxent a new patent for the fur business, for the firm St. Maxent and Ranson. This firm, which rivaled Laclede's, was to contribute to Laclede's declining fortunes in St. Louis. Maxent's second daughter, Marie Elizabeth de Street Maxent, married the next Spanish governor Luis de Unzaga in 1770. His eldest daughter Felicite, who was widowed, married Unzaga's successor, Bernardo de Galvez. Galvez was to later succeed his father as Viceroy of New Spain. During this period it is believed that Maxent was the richest man in the entire territory. He built a series of lavish homes. In the Great New Orleans Fire of 1788, which destroyed most of the city's buildings, Maxent was officially commended by the Spanish for opening his home to many refugees and for selling supplies to the Spanish at the same price as before the fire. American Revolution. During the American Revolutionary War, Spain sided with the French and United States against the British, and Saint Maxent was placed in charge of the militia, which saw action in the Gulf Coast Campaign, including the capture of Fort Butte, the Battle of Baton Rouge, the Battle of Fort Charlotte, and ultimately the Siege of Pensacola. For his actions, he was named Commandant of the Militia of Louisiana, LT, Governor of the provinces of Louisiana and West Florida, Captain General of the new Bureau of Indian Affairs of Louisiana and West Florida. In 1782, he traveled to Spain to get concessions from King Carlos III, including permission to import slaves without paying duty. As part of the negotiation, he agreed not to export specie. While returning to Louisiana in 1782, his 2 ships and crew were captured by the British and sent to Kingston, Jamaica, where Maxent was held under house arrest and his men put in prison. They obtained lenient treatment through bribes. The Revolutionary War ended with the Treaty of Paris, and St. Maxent's fortunes quickly soured. One of the British benefactors was arrested in Havana Street. Maxent was implicated in smuggling specie, and the Spanish revoked his titles and embargoed his property. Adding to his woes, his New Orleans warehouse was destroyed in the Great New Orleans Fire, and in 1789 he was again arrested by Governor Esteban Rodriguez Miro. St. Maxent eventually cleared himself of the charges, but the process tied him up for the rest of his life. The next Spanish governor, Francisco Luis Hector de Carondelet, called him back to military duty to help build Fort San Felipe. Carondelet recommended that he be promoted to brigadier general, but he died in 1794.